serve also as the director of our Youth Leadership St. Louis program. And I have with me my partners in crime that help me to keep it all together. I've got the person that helps facilitate and help us work with our students and our partners. And then I have a person that is our glue and our logistics genius and gets those things together. So I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their role in the program. And then we'll get going with a quick presentation, some testimonial, Q&A, and then we'll wrap it up. Thank you, Dr. Coley, for joining us. Harlan, why don't you say hello to everyone and let them know who you are?
Thank you, Shayla. Thank you, Shayla. Good morning. As Shayla mentioned, I am her partner in justice in
Yes.
the work that we're doing. It's been an honor to be a part of this program as a co-facilitator. I think for about 20 years now. This is some of the most important work of my life. I'm so glad that you all have joined us to hear a little bit about this program to put it all into context. And so I can't wait to share more with you today. So thank you and good morning.
Thank you, Harlan. Why don't we hear from Kate, who is working the behind the scenes, even on the virtual call for us. And she is a member of our team and helps us do all the things behind the scenes and sometimes in front of the scenes. Kate, why don't you say hello?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kate Hanford. I'm program coordinator. I love supporting YLSL. They're such inspiring, sweet, kind leaders. I also support women in leadership and Leadership St. Louis. I've been with Focus for about 2 years, but love working with Shayla and Harlan. They just have a harmony between the two of them. And we're just so glad you're here today. You might have heard, as other people were popping on, we are recording this session today. It's an early morning. Y'all are busy. If you need to pop in and pop off, if you need to reference something in the future, this conversation is being recorded and will be sent out to anyone that's registered for this as well. So if you were wanting to share this with an administrator or a potential co-facilitator, there's that option. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. The other thing we want to do, and some have already done it, is we want you to go ahead and rename yourself. So if you go up, remembering Zoom, right? Like, what do we do? If you go up to the right-hand corner in your screen, you'll see the 3 dots or the ellipses. If you just click on that and click rename, you can go ahead and add, what school or organization that you're with. That just helps us, get to know you, a name and a face with an organization and the potential that we have to partner with you in the 24-25 academic year. So if you would go ahead and do that for us, that would be helpful. The other thing that we're going to do is I have put together a couple of slides to just give you a high-level overview of the program. But if you have questions or comments, please feel free to drop them in the chat and or raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask the question. We're going to be really informal in this process and making sure that you get your questions and needs met about the program so that you can make an informed choice and decision to partner with us and to introduce this opportunity to your students. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can see a little bit more about our program. Can everybody see my screen? If you do, can you give me a thumbs up? Okay, great. So this is Youth Leadership St. Louis. This is a picture that we took, a couple of years ago at one of our opening retreats. You see the number of students plus our advisors. This is this is representative of who's in our program. We have students and leaders from public, private, parochial, and independent charter schools, and individuals serve as advisors and or leadership coaches to help us to facilitate and run the program. We couldn't do it without our partners and without our advisors. Here's just, again, a look at our team so that you know who you're looking to hear from or who you're anticipating working with. Our agenda for today is to just give you information about the program, share a little bit of program demographics and outcomes from our most recent program year. You will hear a little bit from Harlan about his testimony. Believe it or not, he went through Youth Leadership St. Louis, the second class, and is still with us today. So that speaks volumes to the impact and the possibilities that this program provides to young leaders and scholars. And then I'll wrap it up with a couple of important dates and my contact information if you have additional questions. So that's just the flow of the day. We hope to get done, before 9 o'clock so that we can gift you back time, but we have time for those questions if they come. So you might want to say, well, what is youth leadership and how long have you been around? We were founded in 1989 by a group of leaders who were in our flagship program, Leadership St. Louis. That program is geared towards individuals who are C-suite individuals or leaders, founders, entrepreneurs, and a group of individuals back then said, what if we would have a program for young people in high school that mirrors what we're learning? Civic education, civic issue education, understanding more about the challenges and opportunities in the region. And then they went ahead and started it. Harlan, why don't you chime in, because you also were part of one of the first 2 cohorts when it started, but tell us a little bit about the history that you know as well. And what else you remember as we've come through when you started to this date and the types of things that the program offers. Oh, you're on mute still. Uh-oh. We still can't hear you. There you go. There
we
you
go.
go.
So as I get older, I'm leaning into this idea that I'm sort of an old head now, right? So I've got a lot of the history of the program, and I think it's important to get the context of those Leadership St. Louis alumni from 1988 or 89. I think the class was Leadership 88, and it was comprised of folks like Flint Fowler, of the Boys and Girls Clubs here, sort of legend and youth development, and Tony Bailey, who was at that time TWA. She was the first diversity director in our region. We didn't have at that time these DEI roles at that time, but she was one of the first advocates for diversity in the region. And when they started talking about sort of the challenges of the region, you got to remember the context of St. Louis at that time. This was before we had a Metro link. This was in bi-state, where everybody sort of jumped on buses in St. Louis. St. Louis was a ghost town after 5 o'clock. Downtown was just empty. People would come to downtown, they would drive in and work and then go home. The city was sort of barren. This was the height of racial segregation in our region. There was a national spotlight on St. Louis because of our challenges around busing and school integration. We had the nation's only voluntary transfer program, and it was sort of up in the air whether or not this thing was going to work. We were in the media because of the AIDS epidemic and syphilis in St. Louis. We had higher rates of syphilis in St. Louis than anywhere else in the country, and we had the least amount of health care accessible by African Americans in the region. Uh, like I said, homelessness was a challenge. Public housing was a hot mess. We just didn't know what to do with poor people in our region. And so, with that as a background, we were also experiencing major brain drain in St. Louis, which was, I think that's when that term came up. All of our kids, the most gifted and talented students in our region, were all leaving St. Louis, going to Chicago, Atlanta, Charlotte, San Francisco. One, because the universities were more appealing, but also the cities were more appealing. And so they would get recruited to those areas and they wouldn't return to St. Louis. They would stay. And so, after 20 years, we saw the impact of that. One, St. Louis's young people were leaving, and all of these other cities that we were on par with were thriving. thriving because of the results of our kids being there. And so Nashville is as great as it is because of all those students from St. Louis. Atlanta grew by leaps and bounds because they got so much of our talent. But then the third part, I think, which is probably most influential, there was a book in the making, or a couple of books that came out. One by Jonathan Kozol called Savage Inequalities, and a second one that was written called Fragmented by Design by our own Terry Jones. Terry Jones was a big a political science person in the region who understood all of these different elements and how they played a role in our region. And he was an advisor and consultant to Focus St. Louis. At that time, he had a different name, but our leadership program, and did much of the development and exposure for our leadership teams here, but helped us understand the region's challenges. And so after that cohort experienced all of this exposure, they said, we've got to start earlier. We have to create a program for young people to make them aware of all of these things that are happening in our region and begin to change the tide, starting with those young people. So that's the context of what was happening in St. Louis at that moment. That sort of inspired Youth Leadership St. Louis.
Thank you, Harlan. That the history is so important, and I'm glad you are our resident historian and can give us the data and give us the true picture of what was going on. So you might say, well, then what are the benefits of the program? If it wasn't obvious, it's a deeper understanding of the St. Louis region. It's unparalleled exposure to influential civic, business, and community leaders, because we bring those leaders to our students. And sometimes we bring our students to those leaders, right? There's tools and experiences to lead difficult conversations around equity and belonging and diversity and what it really means to be included. The other thing is that we are helping students build those 21st century and beyond life and leadership skills. So leadership, collaboration, communication, facilitation, research, and strategic thinking skills. I'll tell you something, we were with youth leadership cohort yesterday, and we had a situation happen beyond our control. And what happened? They leaned in, they were responsible, they listened, they followed directions, they remained calm when we had to adapt and pivot with very short notice. And you know what? They did it. And it's because they have some of these skills and they're able to practice and apply them, not only in our program, but outside of our program. Individuals who are in this program develop deep and lasting relationships, not only with their peers, but with the adult advisors and the staff. I can't tell you how many of the students I am still in touch with, some that are currently in college and others that have started their careers and sometimes have left for college and come back and now are, in leadership positions in our community. But we're able to create a new network of individuals for these students. What we also find is they have a greater sense of personal commitment and responsibility to the region. And we'll show a little bit more about that kind of impact later. And then there's an opportunity for them to be involved and connected, not just to Youth Leadership St. Louis, but to the entire Focus St. Louis organization and our network of 11,000 plus alumni, which about 75% still are in the region. And so that means that they have access to individuals, to leaders in various sectors who can serve as mentors, who can serve as sponsors, who can offer them opportunities for internships and employment. And so it's a wonderful program for students to learn about who they are, but also learn about the place that they call home. And then you might be asking, well, what are some of the benefits to us as a program partner? Well, our program raises the profile of our partners and community. We talk about ways that we can help supplement student learning. The community is our classroom in our program. Our program is experiential based. So it's all about the experience and learning by doing, learning by being in the experience, and then taking time afterwards to reflect. Well, what did we see? We use what, so what, now what? What did we see? And why does it matter? And how will we apply those new lessons learned as we carry things forward? We are a bridge to some of the regional civic and educational leaders and resources in the region. We're always able to make introductions and connections and contacts for our partners. We are able to strengthen student skills, competencies, and knowledge around leadership in life and helping them not only successfully complete their education and go on to post-secondary opportunities, but really become the talent that we want to stay in this region to become the new generation of emerging leaders in our workforce and those that are assuming the responsibilities as civic change makers in our region. We also help students learn how to facilitate the difficult conversations that they may have or that need to be had, whether it's about the politics of the day, although we're a nonpartisan organization, whether it's about things that are happening in the school and they need a place to talk. Our students become the peer leaders, the peer mediators, the facilitators of the hard conversations, because this is a skill that we teach them and that they practice and apply within the program with us. And then lastly, those advisors or leadership coaches receive training that can be used in the classroom and in the community. And then they gain access to the forums that Focus puts on throughout the year and other webinars and networking opportunities to then help them to grow and expand and develop in their roles, not only with our program, but within their organizations as well. So there's such a win-win in partnering with us to offer this opportunity to your students. Harlan, why don't you share, and we can start with the University of Health Sciences and Pharmacy, the picture down below. But this is just some of the topics that we cover over the time that we're with their students, which is an academic year. But here's a couple of the topics that we cover. And I'm asking Harlan to start off because his organization hosts us for a very important conversation with young people. Harlan?
Thanks, Shayla. The calendar year for Youth Leadership St. Louis is really designed to give students exposure to sort of the opportunities and the challenges of our region. And so every year, the experiences may change slightly, but the topics remain pretty much the same because we want them to understand the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of our region. And so we know that education is extremely important to the health and well-being of our region. We understand the role that healthcare itself plays in our region. We understand that the criminal justice system. We had one of our previous governors tell us that said, listen, we can talk about all of the issues of the state, but really there are three things that the budget that comprise the major components of the Missouri's state budget, where we spend our money. It's on healthcare, education, and the criminal justice system. And so those three things will always be anchors to the work that we do. And so I'm really excited that we continue to respond to the request of our students. Our students continually tell us that mental health and their emotional well-being is a major priority for them and the work that they want to explore. And so I'm really excited that we will be hosting our regional health day at the University of Health Science and Pharmacy in St. Louis this year. And we'll give them an opportunity to one, dig into all of the healthcare opportunities that there are at the university, but also to lean into health and well-being from a number of different perspectives with some of our community partners on that day. But we can talk about some of the criminal justice work that we've done, how we lean into leadership and social responsibility. Even the work that we've done around STEM in St. Louis at Millipar on yesterday. It was amazing, Shayla. But it is the company that these young people are in. It's the exposure that they have. But I think the biggest takeaway is always them having the opportunity to reflect with each other and their classmates. The way that our program is designed, it is almost it should be a model for how we should do education. Right now, the way that the classrooms are set up is that you bring kids to a school and someone with all of the wisdom and knowledge pours all of the stuff that they know into their brains, and they're just supposed to know that. Shayla said we use an experiential model, and it has always been what we do. We change the role of the adults in our program. The knowledge holders, the keepers, the people who understand these issues the best are the students. And so we literally just create a space where they can have an experience and then reflect upon that experience with each other. And we serve as guides for their experience. And so the best tool that we have as adults in the program is our questions. And so we just ask really good questions to inspire their conversation and their deeper dive.
Thank you, Harlan. Another piece to our program that's important, earlier I talked about they gain leadership and life skills that will help them in post-secondary and beyond. And so each year, students participate in action research projects. So along with, the curriculum or the content and the experiences that the Youth Leadership St. Louis team create and design for our students, we also have them working on an action research project, that is driven by them. And so for the past 2 years, we have used something called open space technology for students to identify the issues of importance to them. And so some of the things that they're working on this year currently have to do with mental health and wellness for young people, have to do with redlining and access and equity in communities based on their zip codes. We have students working on resource opportunities and accessibility for the unhoused, so individuals that are experiencing homelessness. We are talking about gun violence and the impact that it has not only on our region, but specifically individuals and families. And so there's a lot of heavy topics, but they're looking to lean in. We've also shared with them a process or a framework called strategic doing that allows them to come up with innovative solutions and ideas to present about the particular topic that they're researching. So they're gaining those research skills, they're gaining team building skills, they're practicing problem solving and solution finding, and then they present these findings at the end of the year during a 1 hour kind of open house to our partners prior to the graduation kickoff celebration to kind of launch them into the next step for them. Our calendar will be provided to you when we follow up, but if you're wondering, well, what are the program days? What are the responsibilities or the commitments of the students and the school partners? We run on the academic year and we basically meet once a month. And then in January and February, we meet twice a month on one day on a Saturday in January and February. But you see the calendar, you see the schedule. We give it well in advance so that students and their advisors can plan in advance to know what to expect and to know where we're going, to know who we're going to meet and the type of experience, not only that we're creating for them, but that they will be able to participate and help drive through the questions and the curiosity that they have. So now I want to switch gears. You see some of our demographics. You might be saying, well, who's in your program? This is from last year's impact report. But our program is, about 60%, 40% of students. And so female, about 60%, 40% male. We had a very small percentage that self-identified. When we look at the diversity of the group, specifically by race, but diversity in school type, diversity in neighborhood and zip code, social economics is also a way that the students are diverse, but that you see that we have representation from individuals in our region. And so that's just something for you to know. Last year, we had 68 students from 16 partners and partnering schools and community organizations from over 33 zip codes in our program. In pre-COVID years, and Harlan knows this better than anyone, we had upwards of 150 students in our program. And during COVID, we kind of scaled back for a number of reasons, but we're looking to continue to increase our group size by expanding this opportunity to more students like we did pre-COVID time. And so we're looking for individuals who are interested in helping their students gain this type of experience and this kind of exposure. When you think about some of the impact and the outcomes that we had, these are some of the important data points. 86% said they had a new or deeper connection or relationship with their peers. 81% reported an increase in their self-management skills. 77% reported the ability to get along with others that are different with them, so their people skills. 77% said an increase in communication skills. And here's the deal, our students already come with great assets, so we're only enhancing and building upon what is already there. And so that's just something that we like to talk about. I'm going to skip over this page. This is important, but this will be in the slide deck and the recording that you receive. I want to get to this part. I want to get to this part about who are our program alumni. And you see that guy right there, Harlan Hodge. Harlan, after we talk about, just for about 30 more seconds, other alumni, I'm going to turn it over to you and stop sharing my screen and ask you to tell a little bit about your experience and why Youth Leadership St. Louis was such an impactful experience for you that you've remained with us for such a long time and been on the team to help facilitate this program. But someone else who is currently on the Focus team, Becky Rasmussen, who is the Director of Marketing and Communications, she graduated from the program in 1997 and currently is with Focus and has been on our team for about 7 or 8 years now. When we think of other individuals, people that you may know in the region, like Blake Strode, who is the Executive Director of Arch City Defenders, went through the program in 2004, and then also came back and did our flagship program, Leadership St. Louis, in 2019. And then finally, Erica Abbott graduated in 1990, went through our Women in Leadership program in 2003, and then served on our board of directors for a number of years and offered her service back to us. And so it's important for you to understand that if you partner with us, specifically with our youth program, we've graduated more than 3,500 student leaders since 1989. And our alumni are still very active and involved and engaged with not only our program, but with Focus St. Louis and the work that we're doing in the region. Harlan, I'm going to stop sharing screen and I'm going to turn it over to you. And in your special kind of unique way, tell us a little bit about what Leadership St. Louis has meant to you and why it's such an important program based on your experience.
Thanks, Shayla, and I appreciate the opportunity. Shayla and I talked quite a bit about this opportunity, and and usually what we would have is we would have a student on to share their experience over the past year. But after about 20 years, I wanted to do something different. And so I appreciate this opportunity. One of the things that we talked about yesterday is that we don't necessarily just learn from experience. And we shared the quote from Ben Franklin that says, experience is the best teacher. Many times we forget about the second part of that. He says that experience is the best teacher, but it is a fool who can only learn from that teacher. And so we lean into this idea that we learn the most when we reflect upon our experiences. And I've had over 30 years to reflect upon my experience with Youth Leadership St. Louis. And really quickly, I want to share with you some of the things that I've seen over that time period. It's so funny to see that Becky was in the class of 1990. And I came in, that was the first year of Youth Leadership St. Louis. Usually if you start something, the first year is sort of a test year. The second year is the year you get it right. And so I was in the program the year that they got it right. And one of the first things that we did in that first year was we experimented. The folks who were in Shayla and I's role at that time, they were saying, here's what we need to give them exposure to. Let's go out and do it. We'll ask questions later. And one of the first experiences that they gave us was, you want to understand homelessness? Let's have them spend a night at a homeless shelter. And so we took this small class of students, and half of us went to a women's shelter, the other half went to a men's shelter, and we spent the night in those shelters, and we talked with the people who were there. Talk about empathy, immediately understanding what it means to sleep in this cold place next to someone else. You've got a cot and you're exposed in just about every way. But having the assignment to understand, what does it feel like to be in this position? It is something that has stuck with me for 30 years, that kind of experience when you talk about experiential learning. We spent an enormous amount of time meeting people who had decision-making authority in our region. So we met all of the mayors of the St. Louis region, including Vince Shamel, who at that time was given credit for closing down Homer G. Phillips Hospital. We met Carl Officer, who had just responded to a toxic hazard that had happened in East St. Louis. And he told us about Red Hill, which, as a kid growing up in East St. Louis, we didn't understand what that was, but he helped us understand the real challenges of a poor city and the kind of things that happen when you are in that position as a mayor and as a poor city that has been robbed of its income base. And I don't know if you all know about the relationship with East St. Louis, Sauget, and Monsanto, but even as high school students, we got exposed to those kinds of challenges. As a result of those experiences, one of my classmates became Vince Shamel's first youth advisory board president to the mayor. So literally, the mayor's office established a youth advisory committee because of its exposure to Youth Leadership St. Louis, and one of my classmates was the president of that advisory group. He went on to become the governor of the state of Missouri. We had exposure to all of the challenges that were happening in downtown St. Louis through Youth Leadership St. Louis, understanding the challenges of downtown closing after 5 o'clock. 10 years later, two of my classmates from Youth Leadership St. Louis started Metropolis St. Louis. Metropolis St. Louis started out with a very simple thing: a group of people who got off of work and literally did a bar hop at 6 o'clock every evening, every Thursday evening, downtown St. Louis. What did that do? It kept those businesses open after 6 o'clock. It kept starting with a group of about 5 people, growing to a group of 600 people who would stay downtown just to go around to restaurants, to bars, keeping them open. Literally reestablished, revitalized Washington Avenue to what we know today. These are the kinds of things that I've seen out over this time period of the power of exposing young people early to the challenges of our region. In science class, we all learned that anything that is disconnected is either dead or dying. And so the opposite is also must be true, that things that are connected, we will find our greatest self, our greatest potential in our relationships and our connections to other people. And so what we try to do is connect our young people to the region, and we have seen that it gives them life and purpose. We've seen students just literally say, I am a part of this region. I've benefited from it, and I have an opportunity to advance this cause. And so we've seen students stay and go to college here, stay engaged, go away, come back to St. Louis, re-engage with the region, and we've seen our region benefit from it. I am just, I think that maybe my experience has been a little bit of an example of how that works. I became so committed to St. Louis that it was how I didn't know what I would major in. I just knew that I wanted to be a part of St. Louis and a part of this vision that we were painting about the well-being of St. Louis. And so I've been involved with Youth Leadership St. Louis since 1991 in some way or form. First volunteering, coming back and talking with students, and then I had an opportunity to co-facilitate this program with the then director, Mary D. Schmidt, and work with her on this program, and it helped develop and shape me as a professional. And I will continue to serve this organization as long as I can. It is one of the most important things that I do in my life, and it complements all of my work as a social worker and an advocate for young people and health in our region. But I can't say enough about it. It is literally connecting young people to our region, and our disconnected region needs it.
Thank you, Harlan.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And you all, there's so many more stories. You'll have to get like coffee with Harlan just to tap his brain and to hear some of the other experiences and people that he's met and worked with, and some of the others that have done some really outstanding work as a result of youth leadership being like that impetus or being that spark that helped them to really see the challenge, yet the opportunity that they could step up to as a leader regardless of their age, because their age is for us anyway in our program, that doesn't have any relevance as much as it's about if you have passion, if you have curiosity, and if you have solutions, then let's talk about them and let's get you into the right places and spaces for others to hear from you. So thank you, Harlan.
Shayla, we talked about two books earlier, Savage Inequalities and Fragmented by Design, that sort of outline the challenges of our region back in the 80s and 90s. There is also a book that just came out in the past couple of years called The Broken Heart of America, that looks at St. Louis's history and brings us all the way up to current day. And we will see that we still have many of the same housing challenges. We still have many of the same healthcare challenges, education challenges that we've always had. But the book concludes it has a wonderful conclusion. As a matter of fact, it tells a story about the kids at my high school. I serve as the school board vice president in Normandy. And the book literally ends with kids running track at Normandy. And he says, against tremendous odds, these young people still make extraordinary strides. And that really is the essence and the hope of our region, that our students, our young people, even under these conditions, continue to make extraordinary strides.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we're getting close to the time where we want to wind it up. If there are any questions, we're happy to take them now, but I see that Kate has also dropped into the chat our email addresses if you want to reach out and you have questions later. Not only as a follow-up will you receive the recording today, but you'll receive some additional information. And I'm going to share it on the screen really quickly just so that you can see. One of the ways to really solidify and begin this partnership process is we will include with a follow-up email an intent to participate form. All that is you saying, we intend to participate. You give us the name of a contact person to get the conversation going, and then someone on our team will follow up with you, most likely Kate or myself. And then from there, we begin to share with you the next steps of the process. How do you select your students? What are the forms that students need to turn in? When do parents hear from us? And then when does the next program year kind of start? So there's some important dates listed, but program calendars will be made available, and an array of other information that will be helpful for you to make an informed decision about youth leadership and the opportunity that you can present to your students. So I want to just say thank you to those that have come on. And see, again, any last questions? Let me double check. We've got the book is in the chat. Thank you, Kate. Any last questions from our participants today? Dr. Coley, Ms. Tibbs Tate, or Ms. Bowles, anything standing out that you really want to ask before we dismiss? Please feel free. And if not, that's okay too.
I guess one of the questions that I have is, do you work with specific schools, or is it that any student from any school, if this is something that they're interested in, that they can reach out, contact you to just kind of see how they can be involved, get involved?
The two ways primarily that individuals or students get access to the program is through our school partnerships and through our partnerships with community-based organizations. So typically that's the route. We tend not to take students on an individual basis, only because in terms of safety management, group dynamics, having a representative from the partner organization serves as that chaperone and liaison when we are out in community. But for example, if you say, okay, well, maybe my school, we're interested, but I'm not sure if we're going to be able to move forward, but maybe we leverage the opportunity with a partnering organization that serves youth, like Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. We've had some church groups. We've had Vintendu for Africa. We've had Soul Fisher Ministry. So we've had other youth serving organizations that have also rallied around and said, we want our young people to access this. And maybe our school is not going to participate, but our community organization will participate. And I'm happy to, talk with you more offline about some strategies or maybe some introductions that could be made, and we could follow up and kind of work together to see how we can get the decision makers in, either our schools or those community organizations to a yes, and bring this opportunity to your students.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions before we let you go?
I also wanted to offer, it's great, like Shayla was saying, to have a advisor, is that conduit of communication and support, especially for, us and safety and, high schoolers reading their emails, that type of thing. But if there's kind of independent students in different schools or organizations, we have a boilerplate form. This is our schedule. This is kind of what the program looks like. Focus has a wide reach. So it can look like it's a lot of school that this one student is asking off, and that can be intimidating both for parents and administrators to get formal written approval, but we can help with that as well.
Thank you, Kate, for adding that in. We're here to provide supports that will also make the experience not only a great one for our students, but successful for the individuals that step up and either serve as the initiators of the partnership and or serve as the advisors to work with us and the students. But we're here to help. So we're going to wrap up the conversation. I want to say thank you for giving us part of your Thursday morning. We know that you could be doing a lot of other things and probably have a lot on your plate or people waiting to get to you. But we thank you that you took a few moments out of your morning to learn more about this program, to hear the testimony from Harlan, and to know how to get in touch with us if you have additional questions about this opportunity for the 24-25 academic year. So thank you so much. Have a great day, and feel free to call us if you have additional questions. See you later. Thank you.